Shalom Aleichem. Ik heet Judka Feldberg Isenberg, and this is my story from the Holocaust. I was born in 1912 in Staszów, Poland, where I grew up in a traditional Orthodox Jewish family. I married a beautiful wife called Ruchilia Lipman in 1934 at the age of 22. In 1935, I had my first daughter, whose name was Judith. All was going well for me and my family. We lived in a town with a large Jewish community, Staszów, and my shoemaking business was very profitable.
On September 5, 1939, the German soldiers were already winning the war with Poland, which is why they decided to bomb industrial towns that were important to Poland's infrastructure. This led the Germans to heavily bomb Staszów. Then came the soldiers who marched into Staszów for two different reasons. The first was that Staszów was close to the southeast side of Warsaw, which made it quite a rich trading town. The second was that 52% of the town's residents were Jewish. The town's population was 10,000 at the time, so around 5,000 of them were Jews, which caught the Germans' eye as a good place to build a ghetto. The Staszów ghetto was a roofless place where many Jews suffered from poverty or malnutrition.
My family and I survived in the ghetto until 1942, when the threat of deportation to the death camps arrived. My wife and I decided that she would take Judith and my other daughter, Hannah, who was born in 1941, and hide in a Christian's house that I paid for by working hard labor at the German transport company Ohemler. This last resort pained my already aching heart, but there was no other choice.
The Nazis built 6 extermination camps in Poland. They were Auschwitz, Belzec, Treblinka, Sobibor, Majdanek, and Chelmno. In these extermination camps, approximately 3 million Jews were viciously murdered.
Suddenly, I stopped hearing from the rest of my family. That day was the worst that I have ever experienced so far. I didn't know if they were alive. I didn't know if they were dead. I didn't know. That was what hurt me most. Years later, when I had so little hope of knowing what happened to them, I discovered from a friend that the man that I trusted with the life of my family betrayed me and told the Nazis where my family was hiding. This meant that they were transported to Stopnica, which was another ghetto. However, their stay in Stopnica seemed tranquil when compared to their next deadly destination, and it did not last long, as it was just a break in the journey to the infamous Treblinka extermination camp, where they met their untimely end in the gas chambers. I trusted the man with the pure innocent soul of my family, and he betrayed not only me, but them too. They were brutally murdered by the Nazis, but really, he murdered them too, and in my eyes, he is also to blame. The injustice of the world overwhelmed me as I mourned my beloved family's death. Not wanting to meet the same fate as many other Jews, I decided to work relentlessly in hard labor and make the director like me, so the SS soldiers couldn't take me away. This proved useful when one of the Gestapo soldiers wanted to shoot me. However, my boss intervened and said, "Don't shoot him, he's my best worker." A while went by, and by the 3rd of June 1943, it was time to move on to the next work camp. While we were being transported in trucks, I saw my chance to escape when a lorry transporting grains was on the other side of the road, going the other way. I wanted to hesitate, to weigh my chances, yet I had no time. I didn't know if I will make it. I didn't know what to do. However, something had to be done. I didn't know. Once again, I didn't know, but I took my fading chance and leaped to the lorry. I got shot in the leg by an SS guard who was ready to kill us. Wounded, I made my way through the Goljo forest trying to get away. not knowing where I'm going but still going.
Many Jews who managed to escape into the forests of Poland later led skirmishes against small German patrol groups, assaulting them, taking their supplies, and sometimes even killing them. These people later became known as partisans. The Jewish partisans faced many enemies. The main enemies were the Nazi Germans, Ukrainian nationalists, the Armia Krajowa, which was the Polish Home Army, Lithuanian Nazi collaborators, and even the Soviets.
After a while of wandering by myself, I found a fellow escapee named Lemel Gabriel Becker, and he introduced me to a group of another 29 people, including a doctor who treated my leg. The best part was that they were all Jewish partisans. The doctor who treated my leg said I needed to have it amputated. However, I said no, as I knew that I would definitely be caught and killed by the Gestapo if I only had one leg.
Apart from the partisans, there was another group of civilians fighting the Germans. These people were known as the AK, or the Polish Home Army. The AK fought the Germans, however, they were also anti-Semitic and believed that the Jews brought the Germans to Poland. This meant that the AK also led skirmishes against both the Germans and the Jews.
One day, we were attacked by some AK soldiers and I got cut off from the group. Once again, I found myself wandering alone until I reached a farmhouse. There, I was greeted with a familiar face. I used to sell shoes to the farmer who lived there, so he kindly offered me a place in his bunker in the barn. With me, there were another 7 Jews, and I spent just over a year there, until the AK came and gave him a beating, so he kindly asked us with good reason to leave the bunker. Before we left, he gave us some potatoes and bread, and wished us good luck, even though he knew there was no luck nor hope anymore. The party of 8 endured into the forest for the next month, going between towns and the forest. One day, one of the Jews fell over and couldn't walk as a result of it. He told his children to leave him and go rescue themselves. I was heartbroken by this, so I carried him for a couple of kilometers until we reached the town. We wandered like this until May 1944, when we were finally free. After 4 years and 8 months, we were free. After all the pain and suffering, I regained hope.
The Germans were driven out of eastern Poland in May 1944, when the Russians started to push Nazi-occupied land. This happened as a result of a failed attempt made by the Nazis to gain Soviet land. Part of the land gained by the Soviets was where Stashov was located. This meant that all the partisans in the Goljov forest were free.
I then made my way to the south of the defeated Italy, and from there I was smuggled to Tel Aviv on a boat on the 19th of August 1945. In the same year, I discovered what happened to the rest of my family. In 1947, I remarried with Ida Steinsberg, who was also from Stashov. I wanted to start a new life, to forget my old one, even though I knew I shan't forever forget. Through all the grief and continuous suffering, I was still alive. I was lost trying to find stable ground, and marrying Ida was like the mouth of a new river that I myself had forged. In 1948, I had my first son, Omri Feldberg, and in 1952, I had my second son, Modi. Finally, after all the consistent troubles and pains that engulfed me and the European Jewish community, we saw light once again. We have survived and eventually thrived in Israel.